Welcome to the story of every man. Tonight, I'm going to bring in a friend from church. Welcome, Kevin Garcia.
Thank
Wait,
you.
is that the right name?
Yeah, Kevin Garcia. That's
Okay.
right.
I was
Yeah.
like, wait, did I say that right? Okay.
Thanks
Welcome,
for
Kevin.
having me. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. I've
Yeah.
been looking forward to this. Are you ready to rock and roll? You ready to get the sun?
I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm easy breezy.
We're going to have Casey joining us and Chris.
Casey,
Welcome,
and Chris.
guys.
All
All
right.
right. So let's start with some questions that I like to ask to almost every guest, okay?
Okay.
Where were you born at?
So I was born in San Benito, Texas, which is a small town in like South Texas. I mean, you go San Benito, Brownsville, Mexico, so it's pretty south.
How far was that from the border?
Oh man, probably like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Like
Okay.
and that's with traffic lights and stuff. Like
What's the biggest a bridge closest to you?
Ridge?
Closest crossover? Like
Oh, into
internet-
Mexico?
Yeah, into Mexico.
I think it's Matamoros.
Matamoros? Okay. Not too bad. Do you speak Spanish fluently?
I do not speak Spanish fluently.
Do you
Me
speak it
either.
at all?
I
Except for
speak
what
it
John
well
taught me.
enough to maneuver life.
Okay.
So when it comes to speaking Spanish, I can get around. I struggle with very technical stuff
Mhm.
and conversational. So yeah, anything that's like very technically oriented, like, hey, I need you to go do this very specific thing. No, but if you throw me out into Mexico, I could eat, I could drink, I could get home, I could find a place to sleep,
Okay.
Do you know any other languages?
No, not well enough to say that I know other languages. I do not.
Okay. How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have one brother, and that's it.
Was he born here in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Were your parents born in the U.S.?
Yes.
Okay. Mine's going blank now. So where did you go to school there in San Benito the whole time?
So interestingly enough, so I was born in San Benito, and when I was born, my dad was in the Border Patrol Academy in Georgia, and so when he got out of Border Patrol, at the academy, they sent him to Arizona.
Mhm.
So when I was like a baby in arms, I moved to Arizona, and I pretty much grew up there until my first freshman year.
All the way until that time?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I'd come back for family visits and stuff like that, but Arizona is where I grew up from a young child up until maybe about 13, 14.
The whole family unit was there, like mother
My mom, my brother,
and
yeah.
you. Okay. And y'all would come just to get like to reunions and stuff back to San Benito.
Yeah, I mean, my grandma's lived here. My aunts, like all my family, essentially were from the valley, and so we'd come back to visit. Mainly, that's what we would come do on our vacations. Hey, let's go down to Texas.
Okay.
My dad wanted to see his mom. My mom wanted to see her mom, or something like that. It's like the whole family trip. Was our family trips most of the time.
What was it like growing up in Arizona? What was that time like?
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was beautiful. It's a desert kind of landscape, and the heat is a dry heat. People always talk about the difference between dry and wet heat, and you could hide from the heat. Like you get into some shade, and you're nice, and it's not as hot. You touch something metal, you'll burn, your first layer of skin off or whatever. But it wasn't that bad growing up there. The monsoon seasons, like when it rains and thunders, really drove my passion for the rain and the thunder. I love storms of any kind. So I enjoyed living there. We lived in a rural area, so I could run in fields and ride 4-wheelers and shoot guns and do stuff like that growing up. So it's great.
And then you moved back to Texas and finished out your school in Texas.
Yeah, so I moved back in high school, my freshman year, and then that's when I finished out till I left the military. So
Cool. Describe your life in school. How would you describe that? Were you the jock? Were you the
So okay, I see where you're going with it. Yeah. So I was actually
the quiet?
I would say
kid?
I'm more of a chameleon. Like I had friends who were jocks. I had friends who were gangsters. I had friends who were nerds. I had friends and I could really I didn't really go into one specific area, but I would float between all of them. I've kind of always liked people, so I've never tried to like pigeonhole myself into one area because, you know, everyone is so interesting, and I feel if you like cut people out, you're missing out in like these great stories and life experiences and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I had a friend who was like a Wiccan guy, and we would go run together in the middle of the night and stuff like that. And I was always trying to be really accepting of everyone because he'd be like, "You need a pouch for protection with herbs and spirits," and I'm like, "Well, you know, I mean, that can't hurt, right?"
Did you ever get you a pouch?
Yeah, he got me a pouch or something like that, you know. So, because he wasn't like I saw Charmed, and I like his mom was Wiccan, and he had all these crazy expensive books where he would like learn this stuff, and
That's really cool that you gave everybody the value.
I don't know if it's a trend, but my dad was so chill.
Mhm.
Like the only time I ever heard him curse was when he was making fun of us. You know, like what are you guys listening to over there? F this, F that, F that. You know, but like my dad was really chill. Like I think I seen him pissed like once or twice in my life.
Yeah.
My mom was the fire. Like she was the hammer, and like I just was like, like if something
He's the one
was,
to get after you.
yeah, if something was happening. But I think because we really didn't fight, they were just like, you need to chill out and you need to, what do you call it? It's just like, I don't know. We're like wrestling on the floor for like 2 seconds. So I don't think they ever really knew about that. Just, you know. Yeah, but yeah, my mom's the hammer. I always had a fear. Like, I think because my dad never got mad, I was always like, I don't ever want to see him mad because maybe like it's going to be explosive.
Yeah.
So I was always just like,
Yeah.
all right, Pop, you know.
Did he ever talk about his work?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we knew about his work a lot. Like, back in like the early, maybe late 80s, early 90s, he would take us when we were in Arizona to the Border Patrol station, and we would like hang out there. Like it was take your kid to work there, and I think it was like there was no sitter. Like my parents didn't have a lot of money and stuff, so they were like, take him to work. And I remember like going. And being like, hey, I want to drink some water, you know, I'm thirsty. And they're like, there's the water fountain, and it was like right next to the cell.
Yeah.
And so I'd go get it, and they'd be like, come here, and I'd be like, what's going on? But yeah, we'd wandered around that police station or the Border Patrol station, and just keep to ourselves and look at all the equipment and stuff like that. It wasn't super high tech. It was, you know.
Did he ever talk about doing that job and having to deal with picking up immigrants and things like that?
Oh yeah, all the time. You know,
did it affect him in any way?
It did. Well, I mean, picking up immigrants, I don't think really affected him. I feel he really had a sense of duty to, like, he was really against drugs, really against stuff, and he was one of those people that's like, if you're gonna come in the right way. You know, like so it's not one of those like, don't be here. It's like, just come right. And I mean, he got his nose broken a couple times and his knees broken. He was always like
in the fights. I mean, in the like,
yeah, like chasing people, them throwing rocks at him and stuff like that. He got in a bunch of gunfights and stuff like that. So, so we would know about that stuff, and it kind of like would make him get really like, I mean, he was really chill. Like he would be recovering from whatever, and he'd be on the couch playing Nintendo with us, and he was really engaged. He was always like available for us. So because of that, we got to know a lot. And I mean, because I think we were in Arizona, all we had was us four. So it wasn't like my dad wasn't a drinker. He wouldn't go and party or anything like that. Like my dad was a real family guy. So we knew that our unit had to be strong. So we talked about things as a unit. We supported each other as a unit and stuff like that. So there wasn't like I don't feel like he's ever hid anything. If he's hid something from me or not talked about it, then I would be shocked. I'd be like, oh, I didn't even know you could do that. You know, like I'd be surprised.
Yeah. So back in or back in Texas, I guess your relationship with your brother, was it pretty good?
You know, my relationship with my brother is strange.
Okay.
I love my brother, and my brother loves me. And when we get together, we can really, what do you call it? Like, connect, and we spend time together and stuff. But growing up in my family, you called when something was wrong. You know, it's like no news is good news. And I kind of grew up like that. So like me and my brother don't chat on the phone all the time. Like, hey, like my wife talks to her family all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if you call, it's because something's wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to change that mentally because as my parents get older, you know, I don't want to be like next time I talk to them is because they're calling me because someone's, you know, like hurt or something like that, or like sick or whatever. But it's just really hard for me to break that habit. But when me and my brother have conversations and we talk, like we can get into really good conversations and stuff. But I mean, like I guess every brother, when our opinions don't align, you know, it's like, who are you? You know, who are you to tell me that? You know, like stuff like that. But other than that, like my relationship with him is great. Yeah.
Is he older or younger?
He's older. He's 3 years older than me. And it's funny because my brother looks like a Samoan. My brother's a big, like he's like if you look at him and look at me, you guys are you guys related? Like yeah, like he was a bigger dude, a boxier guy.
Yeah.
And so he looks Samoan. So no one ever, like, the great thing was because we were only 3 years, no one ever bothered me really at school, and that's probably why I didn't really get into fights because
They knew him.
yeah, they were like, oh, his brother's like my brother was like the size of teachers when he was going to like middle school and stuff like that. So
Buy
yeah.
you
so yeah, so I mean that's what you know, like I was saying earlier, like I mean I just had really great family experiences my whole life, you know.
So as you grow up, so you went to the military, is that right?
Yeah.
Where'd you go to the military at?
So
What branch?
I joined the Navy. So okay. So my mom's a nurse.
Okay.
Right. Her whole life she's been a nurse. And I was a kid, she was going to nursing school. And my dad was in the Border Patrol. And my dad's like, hey, join the Navy, join the military. My dad joined, like, I don't know if he was joined or they drafted him or what, or during the Vietnam era. He became an admin guy for the Army, and they actually sent him to Germany, so he didn't even have to go to war. Like,
So he was in the military.
so yeah, my dad was in the Army, and my dad was one of these, like, when I got out of high school, he's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know, you know, some punk kid, you know, I don't know what I want to do. And I tried the college route, and it wasn't going for me. He's like, yo, join the military. Do one tour in the military. He's like, it's going to teach you how to take care of yourself. It's going to teach you how to, like, you know, wash your own clothes and do all the things that you need to do to kind of become a man, you know? And I was like, sure, I'll try it. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any experience because he wasn't in when I was like a kid or anything. Like, I didn't grow up knowing that he was in. And so I went to the Marine recruiter. Man, the Marines, why not? You know?
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you want to do? And I didn't even know what I want to do in my life. I go, my dad's a federal agent. My mom's a nurse. I'll join the military, which is federal, and I'll be medical. So I was like, hey, Marines, I wanted to be medical. And the guy's like, hey, the Navy does our medicine. And I was like, okay. So then I just walked over to the Navy office. I was like, hey, what's up? And that process was a little interesting because my fear of obligation and like commitments are pretty intense.
Is it as strong as it is now?
It's probably similar to the same. And so they're like, okay, go through the process, bring the stuff. So I started doing all the process, and they're like, hey, we have to wait till we can get a full truck of people and drive them to San Antonio. And so I was like, okay. And then like weeks later, they're like, hey, we got a truck. I'm moving to Arizona, man. Sorry. So I went to go live with my brother in Arizona for a while. And then it just wasn't like he had a kid, and the relationship with the mom and him and the kid was real shaky. And so it started getting really complicated, and my parents were like, you don't need to be involved in this stuff, you know, come home. So I came home, and then
were you, and I hate to ask this, but were you part of the complication, or was it just they're having complications you didn't want to get involved?
So the problem is I did want to get involved. I really wasn't involved, but I had this like fire anger.
Yeah.
Because I always, I don't know if it was an appreciation for the way my brother was when I was younger. Because whenever I needed him, he was there.
Yeah.
You know, he would always bully me and stuff, like I guess every brother. But if push came to shove, he was there for me.
Right.
So I think when I saw him struggling, I was like, I need to be there for him. So I was willing to go the extreme, and my parents were like, you don't need to be involved in this stuff.
Okay.
So they were like, you need to come home. So I came back to Texas, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in my life. So I joined the Navy. I was like, let me go back to the Navy to pick up some of my paperwork, and they're like, you want to join still? I was like, sure, I'll join. And I joined.
Nice.
What year was that?
That was I joined. I got to boot camp in December 14th of 2000. Yeah, and I gave my dad. I feel bad. I gave my dad a lot of flack because my dad said when he was trying to like tell me, hey, go for this experience. He's like, look, you're not going to war, you know. And I was like, okay. And then like September of the very next year, it's like, we're going to war. So like a year and a half after that, there I am in war, So I was like, Bob, you said I was never going to war, I mean, I jokingly give him a bunch of
Were you excited to go to war?
I was scared, man. I think anyone who says they're excited is silly.
Yeah.
In my experience, I've noticed that anyone goes with this Call of Duty mentality of like, I want to go kicking doors and stuff like that. I usually find that when reality kicks them in the face, they're like, I didn't know what I was asking for, and I wish I never would ask for this because I don't want to be in here. I was the opposite. I was just like, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to do what I'm told and do the best that I can. And they force you with the group of people, right? Because they just, they force you because they just put you all together and say, hey, you guys are a team.
Mm-hmm.
And then you learn really quick that you need to take care of your team. Like the guy on your left and the guy on the right is the most important person in there. Like that's who I need to defend, and that's who's gonna I'm gonna be defended by this guy because he's defending him, the guy on left and right, and vice versa. So I had a whole different mentality. I'm like, look, I'm here to do medicine. I'm here to save your life. That's my job here. And I found that I integrated way faster because Marine infantry is no joke, man. Those guys are legit, and I felt their mentality, and what my team told me was, we don't need another gun on the line right now. We need to know that you're going to save our life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went there with the like, hey man, I'm just here to save your life. And once they were like, we know you can save our life. Now we want you to be another gun on our team.
Right.
And if you go there trying to be a gun on our team, they're like, look, man, your whole job is to save our life. So like, you need to switch your attitude. So I was just blessed that I had, I guess, the right attitude when I went there. And I think it's because I didn't want to be a door kicker. I didn't really have a choice. They were like, you're going. And I fared very well integrating with my team, making sure that we took care of each other and stuff. And I got a lot of opportunity for it.
Did you do the same thing your whole career?
I did the same. Well, I guess my job was the same my whole career, but in the Navy, you do what's called sea to shore rotations. So in sea, you're operational. You can be on a ship, you can be wherever, and then when you're on shore, you can be in a hospital or a clinic or something. So when I was on my shore rotations, I went to clinics. I mainly did clinics, and then when I went operationally, it was always ground, some kind of ground unit, like a Marine surgical company, Marine infantry. Army infantry, because they loan us out, special forces. I did special forces for a little, almost 4 years, or a little over 4 years maybe, but it was always ground fighters, and I felt comfortable there. I feel like after you there's a certain mentality, there's certain personality, there's certain things that a lot of them share, and the biggest part is like, know your place on the team and earn your place on the team. Mm-hmm. And when I was with SEAL teams, they had this big sign in the locker room that said, earn your place on the team every day. And that became a real mentality for me. And I would, at some point I would tell people, and they're like, what I did yesterday? I'm like, nobody cares what you did yesterday. What did you do today? Like, what have you done today to benefit like us, to be a support system and stuff like that. So it's a real mentality shift. And I was grateful, and I was blessed to have taken that route, because that route really taught me to take care of people. And it's kind of bittersweet, because in the military, they forced you together. Hey, this is your team. This is where you're going. And so you're part of that. And then when I feel like when I exited civilian life, I didn't want to, I never wanted to be forced together with anyone, but that's just the way that it was. So I never like integrated myself into someone, because I was like, I don't know these people. Like, I don't want to be the guy on their left and right. Like, I don't know who they are, what their capabilities are. And And so it took me a long time to look for community. A lot of isolation, a lot of like go with what you know and the people you know.
Are you talking about after or after?
After.
Okay.
Just after the military in general, yeah.
Kevin, move that mic in front of your mouth more. Just move it this way and then point it towards you.
You're slowly moving away from it.
There you go.
So that when you went into the military,
Yeah, back to when I went in.
that was the end of civilian life then. Back then, right?
That was the end of civilian life.
Okay.
Yeah.
You enter a whole new life.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to understand. So when you say you're in the military and you're doing these things, right? You're in the Navy, a Navy medic, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
they call them corpsmen, but it's whatever.
Is that like a paramedic or a doctor? What is?
what's the appropriate term?
So the appropriate term is a corpsman,
Okay.
a Navy corpsman.
Okay. So
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, or you help me understand. 'Cause
Okay.
you as a Navy corpsman, they'll put you with whatever team they want to, and you're part of that team for however long.
Right. So not just as a Navy corpsman, like anyone,
Uh-huh.
like in the military, they rotate you
Okay.
constantly. It's not like you get to a unit and you stay there for your career until you leave. Like every 3 to 4 years, they're gonna move you, and so you're like, this is the unit you're going to. When you show up, whoever's there is there, and wherever they are in their rotation, like you could show up on the day someone's leaving. You can show up, and one guy leaves in a month, one guy leaves in 2 months. So I mean, everyone is part of that
Okay.
that rotational pool.
Okay.
And the crazy thing is also my second job I had ever had in my life.
Mhm.
So I didn't have too much experience before that. I worked at Mervin's and I worked in the shoe department for 11 months.
Yeah.
And then I was like, nah, I need to do something in my life.
Yeah.
All right, Al
Yeah.
Bundy.
Al Bundy, there you go.
Yeah. So okay. So and so you go through the military, right?
Yeah.
And what year did you exit the military?
2022.
How would you say your discharge was? How do they call it? What was your discharge?
My retirement.
You were retired,
Yeah,
so
I
it was
was
all good, all positive.
Oh yeah.
Okay. How did that feel seeing that date coming?
So it's stressful. It's
Uh-huh.
really stressful. The military, for what you give, they give you well.
Mhm.
Like especially if you move up, they pay you consistently. Like I remember, I think it was maybe 2010, 2011. Like everything went crazy. Like people weren't getting paid. People were losing their jobs. People were doing all this stuff. And I saw this in the news.
In the military?
No, it was in the world.
In the world. Okay.
And so I was like, I never worried about like, am I going to get my paycheck?
Yeah.
You know, like I could go to work and play basketball all day long and I was getting paid regardless.
Mhm.
But I could also go and be lifting boxes all day long and get
Yeah.
paid the same amount, you know.
Yeah.
So it gives you a sense of security, you know, like medical. I never worried about medical. I never worried about medicine. Never worried about if anyone's getting hurt. If anyone had any problems, it was like, boom, they're taking care of it. They give me a place to live, or they give me extra money to rent a place. They give me a paycheck. They give me an extra stipend to buy groceries. You know, so like that's all like guaranteed essentially. Like I never stressed about not getting a paycheck.
Okay.
And when you get out, it's like dun dun dun. Like you know,
You had-
all that goes away. You know, like
Did you have any idea what was coming? Because it's like it's almost like looking into a black hole in a galaxy. Like I don't know what's going to be on the other side of that.
it is. You know, I could have probably done another couple years before I would have had to get it. They have these like higher tenures. Like if you're this rank, you can only do so long in this rank. And the rank I was, I could have probably done maybe another 2 years.
Mhm.
But I was like, I got to prioritize my family because you know the one thing that is can be difficult in the military is you go where they tell you to go when they tell you to go. You know, if they're like, hey, you're getting on a plane tomorrow to go training, you go, hey, you're going out to sleep in a tent. I remember sometimes when I was living in Camp Pendleton, I'd be like 10 minutes away from my family, but they'd be like, no cell phones in the field, no nothing. So you're like, you can almost see your house, but you're like, I can't even communicate with my family, you know? So, I mean, that can be difficult. And I was ready for a change. My kids were getting older and I was like, you know what? I really need to kind of prioritize my kids. I told my kids before I got out, because I wanted to help them. I've always wanted to just do the best I could for my children. So I was like, if you guys are going to stay in, I'll stay in and I'll try to help you from the inside. It's easier to help you from the inside. I'm like, if you're not going to join, let me know so I can get out. And they're like, we're not joining, Dad, 100%. My oldest is a Marine in Japan, and my middle kid just told me, he's like, yeah, I think I want to go to the Coast Guard. And I was like, okay, well, I understand the concepts and stuff, but
So they did the same thing to you that your dad did. Like they told you they weren't going to do it, then they did it.
Yeah, but my dad told me to do it.
Yeah.
And I was actually like, look, everything I've done is so you don't have to do this stuff, like, and the military is still taking care of me. Like, a lot of people can talk bad about that, but like, the Veterans Affairs and all that stuff, they take care of my medical. They're putting me through school. They're putting my kid through school. Like, I don't have to stress about, like, I can't pay for my kid's college education. Like, hey man, you got this much time of college, take advantage of it, So it's really scary and stressful because you're like, okay, how are you going to maintain that quality of life without, what do you call it? And the bad part was I prioritize work and people over myself. So some people were there and they ended up with master's degrees, doctorates, and all that stuff, and the military is paid for this and they have all these qualifications. But I was not smart enough to say, you know what, I want to boost myself and make myself as best as I can. I was always like, I want you to be the better. I'll work the extra day so you can go to training, so you can get this qualification. And then by the time I was getting out, I'm like, I got no education. I got like no, what do you call it? Like I got no qualifications. I need to get to school. So
what were your thoughts on that?
It was scary, bro. Yeah, it was scary. And the last 4 years of my career is the last 4 years. Like, I did my bachelor's in the last 4 years because I'm like,
you got it. Yeah,
I got to do this.
Did you not want to do anything medical related anymore?
I didn't want to do anything medical related. And a lot of people, my parents included, they're like, you should go to nursing. You should do this stuff because the skill sets you have. But I chose to go to business because business ruins medicine. I've seen a lot of great medicine get impacted by the business of it. And I mean, when I first was in, and I would go to the doctor and they're like, hey, what's wrong? I'm like, my toe hurts, my shoulder hurts, and my wrist hurts. And they'd be like, let's take care of it. Boom, 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 boom. And then you see the transition to be like, hey, my shoe, my foot, my toe, the same things are, and they're like, what's the one thing that's hurting you today? You're like, well, my wrist. Okay, you can book another appointment for the other two stuff. And then you get like an hour with the doctor, and then you get 30 minutes with the doctor, and then now you get like 15 minutes with the doctor. And having known some really great doctors, it's tough for them to try to like treat you and do everything they need to do and really make you feel like they care about you in 15 minutes,
right?
And like, and you're doing a lot of waiting, like I've sat in waiting rooms and sat in the other rooms and been like, oh great, like here's my day, just waiting and seeing this poor doctor struggling because they have requirements of how many people they're supposed to see, and they're like, like I gotta see my 15 people a day, and it's like, and they're just pushing it, and then on the business side of it, you're like, hey, you didn't chart, you got to make sure you chart within so long so we can bill, and you got to do all the stuff, and I was like, I don't want to be that. I don't feel like I could. When I was in the ground side of taking care of people, you have all the time in the world, because on the operational side, when you're in a unit medical, you don't bill, you don't do a lot of that stuff. So you're like, I can treat you all day. I can treat you in the barracks. I can treat you in, a quad con across the street. I can treat you anywhere, and I don't have to worry about like what my limitations are.
Right. And that's not something that's on your mind.
That's not something on my mind. So I started getting in the business side of the medicine, looking at accreditations, looking at like a lot of the fundings and looking at that stuff. And I was like, there's no way business would allow me to do what I would want to do medically. Right. And also like the other bad thing is you see the people who are taking advantage of the situation. Like, you see everyone show up to medical, like, it's Friday. Everyone's gonna show up because they don't want to go to work, or Monday because they don't feel great. Or we have physical tests coming up, and everyone's shoulder all of a sudden hurts, and you're like, bro, like, how you that jacked? Your shoulder hurts. You know, like
So you had to say so whether they could get out of it or not.
I mean, you don't, but when you're younger, you're like the nurse. You're like the nurse's aide in this stuff or the med tech. You're the one seeing everything and presenting to the doctor and being like, and and depending on your doctor, some doctors are really cool and they'll expand your scope. So we used to play a game to be like, can we see a patient without the doctor coming in?
Right.
Right. So you go and you do all the tests and you do all the exams and you get your history and then you go to the doctor and you'd be like, this is what I have. And he's like, okay, give him this, write it up like this, tell him, this. And you're like, okay. And then if they were like, how's their shoulder look? And you're like, I kind of looked at it late. And they're like, well, let me go check it. And I'm like, oh, great. So, I mean, like, your scope was really open to what your doctor really allowed. And the other thing is your scope of medicine operationally is extreme. So they would train us in stuff that they're like, where a lot of people would be like, can you certify me? And they're like, no, you have to be a surgeon to get this training. And so you can't be certified unless you're part of the National Surgeons Association.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I would talk to my mom about like IVs and sutures and all this crazy stuff that they would teach us. And my mom's like a nurse, been working for a long time. She's like, I've never done any of that stuff,
Right.
So then you realize like if you're gonna do something, your scope is gonna get really shrunk. EMT school, like for example, EMT school is one of the hardest things for corpsmen because unless you learn in EMT school that everything is medical direction, what are you going to do? Contact medical direction, contact medical direction. And when you're a corpsman, you're like, I'd give an IV, I'd start pushing this, and I'd give them this medicine, and they'd be like, wrong, you're failing because you need to contact medical direction. And they're like, so that's the other part of medicine is knowing that your scope is based on your credentials and what your qualifications are and stuff like that. I was like, I want to do business,
Yeah. I got you.
So,
So, do you remember the last day of actual service?
yeah, of course.
What was that day like?
That day was awesome. That was my retirement day.
Yeah. Did you drink a lot?
No, I don't drink really
Really?
at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I rarely drink. And it got to the point where a lot of people thought I was like on the wagon.
Really?
Yeah, because
Why would they think that?
because of how often I didn't drink, or like my great friends would know, like, hey, like my drink of choice is Sprite with a lime twist.
Okay.
So like every time they're like, give me 3 beers and a Sprite with a lime twist, because I'm like, okay. So it got to the point where it was so overly communicated that, oh yeah, no, he doesn't drink, that people would just assume.
Yeah.
And so I told my buddy, I said, hey, you know what? When you retire, I'm gonna take a shot with you, bro. Just because you mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
And I was giving this speech, like I stood up and was like, hey, I love you, brother, all this stuff. And I was like, it's been 5 years since my drink. And like people were rushing up to me like, no, don't do this. And I was like, what? They're like, it's not worth it. And I was like, I don't drink by choice. I don't have a problem. Yeah. I mean, I was talking to this guy and I think he took it strangely. It's like, my fear is that I take a drink and they're like, Gianni needs you. He's my youngest. Or Castile needs one of my kids needs me. I say my youngest because my other ones are adults. They can drive. They can do whatever they need to. And I can't respond. I'm like, I can't go get him. I need to find a ride. I need to find somebody to do this. And so combat has made me feel like I need to be in charge of my faculties at all times. Like I need to be able to react to a situation at all times. And I don't want it to be clouded with, you were drinking.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I could have made a bonehead move. And if you're drinking, it's because you were drinking.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So no, not a lot of drinking, a lot of food though, because I can eat. I love to eat. So one of my buddies.
So it's safe to say if it's not alcohol, it's not anything else either.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah.
Just clearing that up.
Yeah. So, like I don't have any, like anything that would kind of delay my reactions or delay what do you call it. I've been diagnosed as hypervigilant, and like I was aware and all this tense and always waiting for something to happen.
You've been literally diagnosed with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, not because I have a diagnosis, but now I understand why. Like I'm always like wanting to be like prepared. Always, they call it head on a swivel. Like, but yeah. So my retirement. So I'm not a sports guy.
Okay.
I don't. That's another thing. I don't follow sports. The only sports I follow is whatever my kids play.
You ever feel like out of place when people are like, "Hey," and you're like, because I'm not a big sports guy either. No,
So
like,
I could care less.
I know enough. Like I know enough of the like general stuff, but when you start getting really deep into stuff, like I understand the sports, I know the rules, how they play, and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll just throw something way off, like just what do you call it? They'll be like, "Yo, Michael Jordan was so great." I'm like, "Yo, he ran for that touchdown. It was awesome." And they get that look, and but people that know me know that's what do you call it? But so I was living in Rhode Island. And I was like, I need to retire somewhere memorable, like that's it.
Yeah.
It's the last day. So my buddy hooked it up. So I retired at Fenway Park. Right.
Oh, okay.
So in the very back of the stadium, the backdrop was like the home plate and all that stuff. So it was really great. So we took a bus up there and we did the retirement. And afterwards, we came back to my house and we had a little community center that we rented out. And I had all my friends cook stuff that it was their specialty, right? So I remember I flew in a bunch of crawfish because my buddy was Cajun, he was Louisiana dude,
Nice.
and he like just made spicy crawfish, he made regular crawfish, and then I had another guy who was great on the grill, and he made these like pork burn end things. And so I mean, we just ate, had a great time. Everyone else was drinking, but I was like, but the great thing is when you're not a drinker, you're just kind of like, if you want booze, you need to bring your own stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
You
like,
don't have to worry about it.
yeah. I'm like, I don't.
Would you say that you're the exception? Like they're not, because I can understand that there's people that don't drink. 'Cause I don't really drink. You being, someone who doesn't drink very often, was that the exception in the military?
That
More people
yes,
drink
more
than
people
don't.
drink than it. I mean, I was kind of an exception in the military all the time, right? 'Cause, like I didn't even drink coffee, and
Really?
people were like, "How can you even be that rank without ever drinking coffee?" And I'm like, "I drink tea." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"I drink tea," and then
Like
people
hot
look at
tea
me
or
like,
sweet
yeah,
tea?
hot tea, sweet tea, like tea, bro.
Do you drink it like the Chinese in these little teacups and stuff?
I'll drink Chinese tea like that.
Yeah.
I'll drink.
You keep the pinky up.
Yeah, damn. Even when I have this cup, man, sometimes the pinky cup, I just can't control that. I've tried to like bring it down, but like
Can't stoop to that level.
I can't do it. I gotta.
That's
you
cool.
know.
Okay.
Do you drink coffee now or no?
No, so my coffee story is kind of interesting. I was drinking coffee for a long time, and one thing that I really enjoy about myself is I reflect a lot. I take a lot of time for self-reflection and looking at the things I do. And I'm like, you know what? This is coffee. This is cream and sugar with a splash of coffee. Like what's the point? And I'm not sophisticated enough to where people are like, ooh, this is dark roast. Like you can taste the notes of. I'm like, yo, I don't taste anything. It's bitter, and like I'm not that sophisticated. And I have buddies who drink whiskeys and stuff, and they're like, oh, this is great, or like wine. They're like, look at the legs on this thing, And I'm just like,
They're
you know
hairy.
what? I taste burn. It burns my throat. Like I put it in my mouth, it burns my mouth. Like it's not enjoyable for me.
I'm the same way with it.
So you don't just try to drink it black or nothing like that.
No, because when I drink it black, it's bitter.
It's the best.
I like the laugh. Yeah.
It could.
Like you don't know what you're talking about.
Like, so I make coffee often, sometimes, but I don't drink coffee. My wife drinks coffee, so I'm like, you want coffee? I'll make you coffee. But
So you just wake up in the morning and raw dog life.
I don't understand.
gotta do
So in terms of like the alcohol, like people would go out and drink wines and taste different types of wine. I'm like, it all tastes like alcohol.
Right,
Like it all
yeah.
tastes like I'm fixing to get loaded.
That's
and,
what I
and
am.
get a WI or something.
And
None
then-
of it.
and then I stopped drinking because, when I would drink,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, did I just pay a lot of money for someone to feel like I should have just paid someone to smack me in the face? Like I feel the same way in the morning. Like my head hurts cards, you know.
To spend a lot of money
It's
drinking.
a good way to think.
That's it.
Yeah, and I'm like, you know what? Like, what's the point? Next, I feel horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, those are yeah. Anyways, those remind me of stories that but it's not my podcast. So
That's okay. It is your podcast, bro.
so anyways,
All right.
when you say things like it just triggers old stories and stuff in my head.
But the crazy thing is, I've transitioned some people
To
into drinking tea
Wait.
and stuff like that.
Oh, I thought you meant drinking alcohol.
I thought you meant something else. I was like, you're that kind of medic?
So in the military, you have balls. And you have balls. Right? You have big like galas, I guess.
Yeah.
And so we were in Washington, D.C., and we were at one, and there's this huge dance floors, beautiful wood floors, and they're coming around and they're pouring coffee. It's coffee time, right? And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, do you have some tea? And they're like, oh, yeah, we have tea. And it was kind of magic because the guys, my buddies were sitting next to me, and they end up coming with this huge, like, silver box, you know? And they're walking across this empty stage, and they're just like, people are like, what's, you know, everyone's like, what's this person? And they come, and they're like, choose your tea. And I was like, that's right.
Oh yeah.
And then, but then I got irritated because, like, the next year, someone at the table was like, I want some tea too. And I'm like, but they only brought me a little thing of hot water. And I'm like, and now they expecting us to share it.
Mm.
So I'm like, wait a minute. Like, this is my thing, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm like, whatever at the end. But it's just in the head, like, wait, now you're encroaching on my stuff.
Do you put sugar, cream, like, or do you just
You know what? It depends on the tea.
interesting?
I mean, some tea requires honey, some lemon, some sugar, some
Really?
milk.
You can't just like bag one and just go.
Too bougie for that, apparently. You know?
I don't know.
I probably could. I probably could, but you know, like
What's your tea of choice?
I drink Earl Grey tea.
I have absolutely no idea what that means.
It's a black tea infused with some bergamot oil.
With a hint of
With a hint. Yeah,
With a pinch of.
it's a pinch.
Oh man.
You mentioned these balls you guys go to. How often are those? Is that annually?
So it's more than annually because it really depends on. It depends on kind of like where you are, who your job is, all this stuff. So there's a Navy ball every year, and then the Navy corpsman is considered a corps. So we have a corps ball. So you have a corpsman ball, and then when I became a chief, you have a chief's ball, and then when you're with a Marine unit, you have a Marine ball.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it's like 4 balls a year.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, well, I guess once I hit chief, it was at least 3, I guess, because you did the corpsman ball, but you only went, if you were this rank to this rank. And then from this rank to this rank, there was that extra ball. So then I'd go to that ball and then the Navy ball. So, I mean, it'd be at least 3 balls.
It's a lot of balls.
Yeah.
I used to work for a catering company, and they catered out in California at the Ronald Reagan Library.
Yeah.
And they did Marines balls, they did Army balls, they did the Navy Marine and Corps balls. And they were pretty elaborate, man.
They are.
It was a sight to see all these men and women dressed, you know, medals.
Yeah.
It made me like damn proud to be like an American. Just seeing you guys and ladies in that capacity, and everyone had pride, and you know, it was a sight to see.
Yeah, and it's very structured. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like everyone just gets together. It's like there's a drink hour, then there's
Yeah.
a ceremony hour, then there's what do you call it? There's a lot of formalities to
Yeah.
that stuff.
Can you still attend them?
I mean, I can, but so the interesting thing, I gotta be careful of who listens to this.
We can say it and then we can cut it out.
I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like there's some people who are in the military, and when they leave, that's who they are.
That's all they know.
That's all they know.
Are you talking about like the people that and
People
I may
that-
cut this out, but is it people that leave and they they're still like, I'm a Marine. Blah, 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 blah.
No.
Is that what you're talking about?
It's people who have like
Their whole life.
their whole life
Or their whole identity.
becomes that. Their whole identity
Yeah.
becomes that.
Okay.
And so when we do some, so in the Navy they do chiefs training, and so you'd have a bunch of like this leadership pool of chiefs, and they would train the next promotion into that role. And the retirees were always involved, and they could be involved. They were great at fundraising because had 3 different paychecks coming in, and but they started interjecting, and some of it was great knowledge. Their experience gave them that perception or that perspective and stuff like that, which was great. And then sometimes you would see those guys that would just interject because it's like fraternal,
Yeah.
and it's like, I'm just gonna interject, and you're like, like, well, I bet you're the kind of person, and you're like, I've been working with this guy for years. He's not that kind of person. Like, you're just assuming something and just
Right.
feeling like you need to yell. So I really took it to limit what my interactions was going to be. Like, I haven't really, I went to 2 different final trainings since I've been out, but that's because someone who promoted was like, I want you to come and pin me. I want you to come and put my new collar device on. And those are the only 2 times I've went. I don't look for those opportunities. I don't try to integrate in those opportunities. Because I feel like the people going through it now should be able to enjoy it and experience theirs. And they don't need an old crusty interjecting on, when I was there or how it was, which is kind of bitter and sweet because there is a lot of things I've learned through it. And I feel there's a lot of people have learned through their experience that can be beneficial, but you never really, that's the like rare part, is when you find someone who's actually really going to give you that knowledge, really going to give you that like that inspiration. It's usually like the fraternal, like, hey, someone yelled at me, so I'm going to yell at you.
Yeah.
And that really bothered me. So I made it a point to just kind of take myself out of that and move forward. Boom.
It's well, one, I didn't know that you were in the military for that long. 22 years, right? 22 years. That's just crazy. Like, I don't meet too many people that have been career military people. And I think there's nothing short of a thank you. I couldn't express to you how much gratitude I am for your service. I think also that it takes a certain type of individual to be able to in American culture to go through what you go through from so many people. You got everybody who appreciates what you do. I think everybody should appreciate what the military does, despite what any political process is going on. You guys are doing what you're supposed to be doing.
I agree.
And I think anybody who, whatever your political affiliation, if you want to criticize a military person, I think you should pick up that firearm and go stand in those lines the way you guys do, and then come back and earn that right to be able to criticize you. I think the only person who has that right are people who have stood right next to you. And it's not a question. It's just like, it's my opinion and my viewpoint.
No, but I want to share a viewpoint as well. So we do these things called Sailor of the Quarter. And every branch has it, Soldier of the Quarter or Marine of the Quarter. And you go through these like panels of boards.
Right.
And sometimes you hear some really awesome perspectives that you never said. And so this kid shows up one time, and the question is, how do you feel about someone burning the flag?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so you ask a couple opinionated questions, and he says, I love it. And so the whole panel's there, and they're like, whoa. And he goes, knowing what I do gives you the right to do that. It's awesome.
Right.
Like, I don't appreciate how you handle your rights. I'm proud to provide those rights to you. And so you're right when it comes to that political aspect, but I mean, that's part of why we do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's to afford those rights and opportunities to people.
The stuff that we go through in today's world is just insane. To know that some of the stuff that we do, we would be shot on sight in some countries. Like, we would not make it. Like, they would come up and just, you're done.
And it's true. And the great thing is, like, I guess the experience of that, like I remember when we were in Afghanistan and we heard like, hey, like this school's getting shut down because they don't want any girls to go to the school, and you feel a certain way about it because you feel like, hey, I'm providing, you know, democracy for my country, and you kind of feel that everyone should have the same rights. But that sometimes it's a double-edged sword because you're like, hey, like who are we to push our agendas on other people as
Mhm.
well? So I mean, it can be a double-edged sword
Mm.
how you look at it, but I think you're right.
Was that hard for you when you're overseas, right? Because you did some tours, right?
How many deployments?
I did 3 combat deployments, so I think I spent a total of about 2.5 years in combat.
Sorry, Chris.
That's all right. So was it hard for you seeing everyday life somewhere else that is different from what we have in America?
I feel it starts off hard, but you what do you call it? You learn to you learn that people are people, you know, like, and I think that helps me a lot in today, and it, that's very unique to me because everyone takes their experiences differently. I remember we had interpreters, and they're Muslim, and so me and my team we learned how to best support them. Like we learned like if they're praying, don't walk in front of them.
Mhm.
You know, don't walk in front of them when they're praying unless there's a can or a bottle, something there that would separate them, or you had to know that your patrol needs to stop so they can pray. Like and then you need to find a place for them to wash up and do absolution and stuff like that. So I think it's great to see people owning the pride of what they're doing wherever they are. And it's horrible to see people who take advantage of that. But I can't say that people taking advantage of that is a country specific. You know, like it happens here.
Yeah.
It happens everywhere. So it was hard. Just I think it's hard to see people taking advantage of that anywhere.
Mhm.
One of my favorite quotes came from a Rosie O'Donnell movie. I don't remember what it was, but it was like a Disney movie or something. But I remember her telling this little girl, "There are as many ways to live as there are people," and that stuck with me throughout life. Like whenever somebody is being judged by a bigger group of people, I'm like, you guys don't understand that you're no different than anybody else, you know, whatever the case may be. And that's how I approach a lot of situations. But thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
part. That's pretty cool.
Did whenever you were deployed, did you ever have like one of those profound moments, like this is where I'm supposed to be, like
Mhm.
this is why I'm here, kind of thing, or were you just doing your job?
You know, I don't know if I ever had a profound moment being like, this is why I'm here, you know. I feel whatever we were doing, whether we were doing security, sometimes we'd have to protect certain places. It was kind of like, hey, we're just doing what we're supposed to be doing. My profound moments, I would say, didn't come from anything I did.
Just something you were witnessing, or
Well, yeah. So so before I got out, I applied to Harvard Business School, and you have to like write this. You have to write something that impact your life and stuff,
Right.
and that, and when I wrote it, like I couldn't help, like I couldn't even write it without becoming so emotional, you know. But it wasn't anything that I did. That was the wild part. It's probably why I didn't get accepted. You know?
They probably said he don't understand the questions.
Right. It's because you know I used to go to training and I used to go to school because it's like, okay, it's the check in the box. I got to do this. Like they send me to the class. I got to, you know, just get through it. Like learning is whatever. Like I didn't really see the value in this. I always felt it was something you just had to do that they threw you in. And I wrote about this kid. We got in this crazy shootout and he ended up getting shot and he ended up dying. And so they didn't like it was the early war and it was like there was no supplies, there's no nothing. It's not like nowadays where you have these huge cities out there.
Which war was this?
It was the invasion of Iraq.
Okay.
So, and they put a flag on him, and he as he flew out, and that's when I kind of realized like why my job is so important. And I was running to this guy. I remember because they were just yelling for a medical guy, and I just reacted. I turned and I started running down the street, and we're in crazy gunfight. And I hear in the back someone told me to stop, and they told me to stop because there was another medical guy closer who was already getting to him. And I stopped and I like felt the bullets like, and then I was like, ooh, and feel it behind you, feel it like you feel the wind of those bullets, and that like pucker factor real fast, like oh, reality kicks in, and I'm like, I need to get out of standing in the middle of the road, and then like you kind of take that in about like what happened, and man, I should have been there. Why wasn't I closer and all that stuff? And then I realized like, and luckily that happened really early in my career. I mean, not luckily for the person that passed, but I got that like, hey man, your purpose is to care, to do the best you can to take care of these guys because it's real. It's real. And so that was like profoundness that kind of hit me, but like I said, it wasn't something that I did. I can't say I did this really great thing and plant the flag and been like, this is because of me, like, but yeah, so profoundness happens, but I feel, it was at the expense of others.
Good. So you get out of the military. Did you ever drive military vehicles in the military?
Drive military vehicles? Yeah, I did.
Okay. Tell me about transitioning driving military vehicles in the military to driving civilian vehicles in civilian life.
So no different.
No different?
Right, no different.
Did you treat the drivers of other vehicles the same as you do in civilian life?
So the only difference is like when you convoying somewhere, you do your pre-combat your pre-convoy like checks, and so you kind of understand like, hey, this is what it is. We're all moving in a direction. We're all going to go there. You keep on radio, and so it helps my team driving. Like me and my wife have to drive somewhere. We have like a pattern of how we drive or how we communicate. It does stuff like that, but you have to follow the rules of the road still. Like only in combat convoys was different. Combat convoy is like, and I didn't drive during these times. I was just a gunner in the back. But it's like stoplights didn't exist, stop signs didn't exist. You never wanted to make yourself a soft target, so you didn't let people in. If someone came in front of you, you would like pull your gun up and be like, "Hey, you need to get out of this," because they were sending cars in and stuff to blow us up. And so when I came back the first time from combat, it was different because you live in for 6 months with absolutely no rules, like Wild West. And so you're kind of like, why am I stopping, or why? Like I rule the road,
Is that how you felt? Like
that's how I felt. Like,
how'd you feel when other people got in your way?
So, oh man, so when people would get it, just I don't know if people would get in my way. So I kind of have this thing about like respect. I'll respect you until you don't deserve it. And I feel just like people who drive on the road without respect, it used to fire me up like extreme. I feel like I had a rage in general, and a road rage for me was a thing.
It was the outlet.
It was like the outlet. I was just like, how dare you feel that you can do this to anybody? And really, it was anybody, because if I saw someone on the road getting bullied, like some car just like cutting people off, I'd go like on the offensive and be like, you haven't even got to me yet, but I'm already seeing you coming, and I'm just gonna.
And you're
like,
not getting I do that all the time. All the time. Like,
so
It doesn't matter
right?
what you're driving.
So-
You're not gonna let that person pass.
So man, I got a great story for you about driving.
Let's hear it.
So I was in a government vehicle, right? They sent me to training down in the desert in Yuma area.
You can't get in trouble for this story anymore, can you?
I don't think so.
Okay.
when you say the Yuma area, where is that?
I think there's
Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona.
Yeah, it's like I was in San Diego, but they kicked us out to Arizona for this training, and or maybe it was right before I got to Yuma. I don't know, somewhere out there in the middle of the desert. And and I was in the government car. I was coming home, and I'm flying down the, what do you call it? Doing the speed limit, right? Right. Doing the Texas speed limit in California.
Is that the same place maybe you got pulled over?
No, I was in Nevada.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going like super.
And so here I'm coming, and the road, it's a 2-lane road, and there's this guy and this little BMW. Those drivers are their own types, I guess. And I start flashing the light, like move aside because you're in this fast lane, and I'm coming. And so as I'm creeping up, like he's just chilling, and I'm like, okay, move, let's go. So I'm tailing this guy, like I'm like, yo, I'm close, right? And I'm like, move, and he will not move. And so I'm like, okay, I got to go around then, whatever, you got to go around. So I go around. This guy starts flipping me off like crazy, and I'm like, I'm fired up. So I'm in a rush to come home. So I'm bizarre, and that changed my whole mood. I was like, you know what, like. Game on. It's okay.
I got time today.
So I start hauling it. I get in front of him and I start hauling it, and he starts going faster.
Mm-hmm.
And so
not until you passed him does he start going faster.
Not until I start passing, he gets faster. So then I get really irritated. So if you've ever made the drive to San Diego area from like Arizona area, you go through these mountainous passes.
I remember that.
And so I link up with a semi-truck who's struggling along. And so I change my speed completely. And now he starts flashing his lights and he starts honking. And I'm doing on the highway, going up this hill at like 35 probably miles an hour. And I would go from the tail end to where you couldn't squeeze in, and I'd punch the gas to where it's like you couldn't squeeze out, and then I would just keep doing that forever. And so I finally go to this bend, and I realize there's 20 cars behind us. And this guy is like throwing the finger. He's like, and I'm just like, bro, you didn't move when I moved, right?
You did this to yourself.
Did this to yourself.
See how it feels.
Like, hey, like you need to understand the pain of when someone doesn't move. And so he passes me. Like finally I'm like, man, okay, I gotta stop playing with this guy. I gotta get home. Yeah. So he passes me, and then I get fired up again. So I'm trying to catch this guy, and I'm blazing.
Yeah. What kind of vehicle are you driving?
I'm in a Chevy truck.
Okay.
With a camper shell on it. Okay. And I want to say it's an extended cab, or maybe it's a 4-door.
Is it just like a plain looking car, like an unmarked vehicle?
Yeah, unmarked vehicle. There's no real identifiers on her, but except for government license plates. Yeah. And so I'm blazing, and this guy, like, then we start playing the game, like, okay. Yeah. And then he catches me in a construction zone, and so now I'm behind him. And so I'm pissed because I'm like, now there's no way around. But it's all coned off. And I said, and he's probably about 3 cars behind me. Then I'm like, you cannot win. So I'm like, I make the choice to say, there's nothing going on in this construction. So I jump on the other side of the cone and I blaze up, passing him, flipping him off, like forget it. And I just keep going down the construction side where luckily there's no construction going on. And then I wedged my way in, but by that time I was so far ahead of him that I was just like, I didn't have to worry about him anymore. But I was like, I'm gonna get arrested for one day speeding on the construction side of the construction zone. Like, yeah.
Do they have trackers in these government vehicles?
Some do. The Marine Corps is, I want to say, the most concerned about safety, I guess you say. They got like they have these things that hang down on the mirrors that can video you. They video in the road and they're videoing you. Yeah. So they can talk to you and stuff like that.
That's when I stopped truck driving. Is when they would started putting those in and commercial vehicles.
And luckily, when I was in the Marine Corps, I didn't really drive anything fancy like that. Everything I had to drive was like a tactical vehicle, and those things are just shaking themselves apart anyway. Yeah.
Did you ever get to like bash them into anything?
So, not on purpose. I didn't get to like
drive them like they were stolen.
Because
Is that why they were all shaky and falling apart?
I think people drive them like they're stolen.
Yeah.
Most definitely. We were in 29 Palms. There's a training area out there, and I was lucky enough to have a driver who would drive with me. And we would do, it was an instructor out there, and they tell us, hey, don't mess with the instructor unit, the training unit. You let them do what they're doing, and you evaluate. So you don't say, hey, you should go over here. So there was these big tracked vehicles, and they're just like blazing through these roads, and I'm like, follow them. And he's like, I'm like, just follow, and that. Like things are falling out of the back, and we're just blazing around like coolers and stuff is just getting thrashed. And
did you ever end up in a wreck because of the road rage? Did you ever end up wrecking?
I have never been in a crash.
Yeah.
Because of road rage. I've crashed plenty of cars, but like not because of rage. Yeah.
That's crazy. All right. So let me turn to you're married, right?
I'm married. Yeah.
What's your wife's name?
My wife's name's Crystal.
Crystal. How long have you been married, Crystal?
I have been married for a short time.
Okay.
I think we this year in July will be 24 years. Yeah.
That's real short.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought you were about 2 years.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Well, wait. Okay.
That's short because I mean I'm trying to match that, I'm trying to keep it going.
Y'all been married 24 years. So y'all
you want something awesome? Okay. I've been married 24 years, but I have known her
longer.
For 15.
For 24 and a half years.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Y'all met in the military, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And then it was like, let's get married, let's do it. And then we just did it. And it was a struggle, but
was she what branch was she in?
Same thing. We were in the same class. We were in the same medical class. We were doing the same thing. And she was better than I was, as I almost failed out of that school. And she's like, you need to pass this test or you're gonna get kicked out.
And you're like, hey, mamacita.
I was like, you know what? I don't know what it is, but I want to marry you.
That's really how it went?
No, man. Okay, so I mean, I could give this story to school. Like, we hated each other's guts.
Oh, really?
We hated each other's guts, and that's because she acted like she was the greatest thing in the world, and that was not okay with me. I was like, I'm gonna have to give you some reality. So I was kind of a jerk, I guess you could say. I was a jerk. And she didn't appreciate someone being like, you're not as great as you think you are. So we really hated each other's guts. And we accidentally ended up going on a date because I went to go talk trash to her because she had wrote something on a book of mine when I was in the bathroom. And my roommate was asking her out. My roommate was like, hey, you want to go out with me? But my roommate was already known as the guy who was trying to date everyone.
Yeah.
So she's like, I'm already going out with him. And I was like, whatever. Like, we weren't. And then that weekend, I was just like, I have nothing to do. I was just,
how about that date?
And then she's had nothing to do. I'm like, you want to do something? It's like, okay. And ever since then, man.
You two that didn't like each other.
We didn't like each other.
Like,
and so
we're not doing nothing. I might as well.
I mean, I feel since it's your podcast, I should throw in some great stuff,
So what about her? Like,
so get this. I don't know. She was just a great person. Like, well, I don't know if she was a great person. Like, I just was like, hey, you want to do something? Like, I had nothing to do with something. And then I hung out with her, and she had a great personality. She was she was just as lost as I was because we were just two people in this school with nobody or nothing to do, Yeah. So it was like, let's hang out. So are you ready for the good stuff? So after I got married, it was funny because my mom had to break up with my other girlfriend by accident because I thought we were broken up, but apparently we weren't. So my mom saw my ex-girlfriend or my girlfriend. She was still my girlfriend, I guess, at the time. And was like, oh. And my mom probably thought that I had already told my girlfriend that I broke up. We got married. And she's like, when is he coming? And it's like, oh, he's probably going to go with his wife. And and so my mom didn't realize. My mom let me know that was not okay for her to drop that news unknowingly.
Yeah.
that I was already married.
So was this like a high school sweetheart that you left, and
Or was it the
just
toxic,
I mean,
the toxic one?
You know, I had only been dating her for about 4 years, I think.
Only.
Yeah.
So I want to know, like, when did you know I want to marry you? Or
So I was dumb about it. I didn't really know what marriage was. You know, I knew my parents had a great marriage, but I had never been in relationships old enough to like get involved to where you think you're gonna get married or do anything crazy. And it's interesting because I'll bring religion in to this. I was having a really great time with her, and I knew that if we got married at a certain point, they would send us together, so I can continue this really great relationship through administrative functions. And so I was making nothing. I mean, maybe $300 a month or something like that. I mean, I was making nothing. My second real job I ever had. And I said, you know what? I really want to consider this marriage. I want to keep this relationship going. Marriage is the option. Like, that's the only way we're going to stay together is if we get married. So I'm like, I should ask her to marry me. And so I was at the mall. I was at Zales, and
with her or by yourself?
by myself.
Okay.
And I talked to God, and I said, God, I'm gonna like, if this is the person that I'm supposed to marry, I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna pick a ring. I'm not even gonna look at price. I'm just gonna pick the ring that speaks to me, and then if I can afford it, then I'm supposed to marry this girl. And so I went into Zales, and I was looking around, and I was like, this is the ring. Like, I didn't even know how to pick rings. I was a fool. And so I was like, this is the ring I want. So I talked to the lady, and she's like, do you want credit? And I'm like, of course I want credit. I got no money, I make nothing. And so she's like, well, it's we're having a sale right now, so blah 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 blah. And they pull out that calculator, and they're like, and she's like, oh, like she's trying to like small talk me, and I'm telling her about this whole situation, and she's like, I love this story. I'm gonna give you another discount, and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, this is your price. And I'm like, well, I don't really care what the price is because I don't know if you're going to give me the credit to buy this thing. Like, you could tell me this thing is more expensive, and if I can't get the credit, so I think I ended up getting the credit by like $15 or something like that, like just barely. And so I was like, wrap it up, let's do this. And then I proposed in like the smoothest way I could, which apparently was the worst way she could have received one.
Tell me how.
So we were in a park on the base, and we're saying something about like a sweater or something being too big or something like that. And I was like, we'll see if this fits, I was like, see if this fits. I like
Nice.
that. And apparently there was supposed to be like a knee involved in this thing or something, because I was just casually standing there with my hoodie, just whipping out the ring from that center pocket, like, what about this? And I mean, she said yes to me. Surprisingly, she said yes to me. I think a lot of things the stars had to align like crazy, because I'm like, she really wants to spend some more time with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the worst. I was the worst. And I'm like, and I was able to afford this ring. And so I'm like, I guess it's meant to be. And that was the hardest. It ended up being one of the hardest things in the future for me, because we lived in like these dorms, right? So I knew nothing about her. I didn't know what music she liked. I didn't know what books she read. I didn't know who she really was as a person. All I knew was like me and her were hanging out and going to eat.
And you wanted to keep it going.
And I was like, this is a great time. I'm just going to keep it going. And then she was really Christian.
Okay.
And I was not as Christian.
Okay.
And so she'd be like, what are you listening to? There's bad words on there. Rap music.
Yeah.
She'd be like, she was listening to like...
What were you listening to? What kind of music?
I mean, I was listening to like Too Short and like DJ Quick and like, just like
Short Dog.
Bones Thugs. And so I was just like listening to like had like more in the rap scene, and she was listening to like the Newsboys
Yeah.
and stuff. And I
Old
knew
school.
something about this Christian thing, so I ended up stealing this uh CD. She calls it stealing. I borrowed it, but the guy didn't ask for it back, and I ended up leaving with it. So apparently that's stealing, but it's forgetfulness, I
Yeah.
guess. And so she's like, "You tricked me because I thought you were into this stuff," and I was like, "I had the CD." I was into it. I was into it.
So I'm gonna assume I've talked to her a couple times,
Yeah.
but she's very like proper and
She is, she is, and I think that's something that the military has done to us is protocol. Like
Mhm.
I'm big on protocol. She's big on protocol, but she's very like into like what you're supposed to do, and not for like, oh, I'm supposed to do this, but that's just the way she is. She's like, if you're inviting us, I bring something.
Mhm.
If I send you a thank you card after we leave, like
Mhm.
things like that. Like she's very into like hospitality and wants to be let people know that they're appreciated and stuff like that. And I mean I wasn't, but she's helped me grow, and she's been driving force in my life. She's the reason I was able to complete my training, the reason I was able to be successful at war. Like I could focus on war without having to worry about it. She spending my money. She cheated on me, and I used to have these crazy jokes with my friends because everyone likes to talk trash to each other. So like, what are you gonna do one day when your wife doesn't come home? I'm gonna be like, you know what? Like she held out long. She had a good run. She had a good run. She hadn't cheated. She hadn't made me bankrupt. She didn't like do anything to hurt my
Yeah.
children while I was gone or be a bad person. And I was like, she lasted this long. I just got to be appreciative. She's great. She really is great. I love her a lot.
What's the what would be the one thing you would tell her about her impact in your life?
It's I guess it's not the one thing I have told her.
Uh-huh.
There's been times where she's like I mean, it's hilarious how life works. I wanted to get out of the military a long time ago and be a stay-at-home dad and take care of kids and do stuff like that. I
Mhm.
mean, I didn't really know what that entailed, but
Yeah.
it sounded good at the time. The word "stay at home" just really appealed to me. And she always wanted to be like a CEO, and she wanted to join the ranks of the military and get really high up there. And I was just swimming through life on opportunity to like, hey, you want to do this? Sure, okay, let's do this. And it benefited me very well. And so she got out, and I ended up staying in, and I kind of had the life she wanted. And so for a lot of times she felt down herself, and I'm like, you know what? Because I had my retirement. I was just riddled with awards and a lot of like great opportunities. And I tried to convince her, I'm like, none of that would ever happen. Like if you weren't as solid as you were, with how we were in life and how you supported the family as a whole. And my kids are great kids. I don't worry about my kids like lie, cheating, stealing, unless it's to me. Or like being like rude or evil kids, and she did phenomenal. My kid had some medical problems when he was young, and she was the driving force to make sure that he is where they at right now. And she didn't see them as accomplishments because they weren't like worldly acknowledged to be like
Yeah.
where someone's like,
She didn't get all the accolades and stuff.
yeah. And so she knows. I've told her plenty of times that I would be nothing without her. I would probably be bankrupt because she even makes sure that I manage she
Yeah.
manages the money. Like if she
It's amazing.
died, I would be miserable. I wouldn't even know what our bank account number was. Like I am horrible. I will say that's her fault.
Yeah.
But there's another great story about that. But, yeah,
It probably had to happen.
it had to happen, and I learned that the hard way, because they try to tell you when you're in the military, you've been gone for a year, you've been gone for 6 months, you've been gone for 4 months. Life has continued,
Mhm.
and your wife has had to make adjustments, or your spouse has had to make adjustments to do what works for her. So don't come home and try to be like, "Whoa, this isn't the way I'm used to it," and you throw in a wrench in everything because it's working. And so I learned that the hard way, that I'm like, I can't come in and terrorize it, and I can't compare myself to other people, because I've met a lot of single people that were just counting all the money they were stacking up. And I'd come home and be like, "Where's our money?"
Yeah.
And she'd be like, "They're right there." You know, like, I was like, "Oh, kids, I love you." But yeah, I mean, she knows. I make it a point to tell her that she's just she's the reason that that not just me, but like we are where we are in our life.
Yeah.
We're very blessed.
Have,
And
have y'all always been good, or
no, at the beginning we struggled a lot, like learning each other. We went through a lot of struggle. Um, so not only were we learning a lot, but she was pregnant, and we were sleeping on the floor in borrowed blankets from the military. They didn't realize that we were borrowing them. We borrowed these blankets,
Yeah.
and so we started with literally on the floor with nothing.
Yeah.
And so that was a struggle, because I was 20 years old, and no one wants to be a dad at 20 years old. So I tried. I mean, I don't know, the best I could, but I was pretty selfish. Like, I'm like, what about my time? What about this? So that was, I think, a struggle for her. And then there was a part where we kind of grew apart, because we never saw each other. She was on a ship, and the ship was in a dry dock about a couple hours away. So she'd have to wake up really early and get to a bus that would take her to the ship. And sometimes she'd have to spend the night on the ship. So it'd be days before I saw her. We just crossed paths, and we really like lost the like, I need you and you need me. And so we went through a really hard time, but I realized that was my fault. And so I had I moved out of the house, and I was sitting with a friend. I was living with a friend at the time, and she had the kids, and I was taking a time for reflection, and from movies and kids who from divorced parents and stuff that you see. And I'm like, what am I going to tell my kid when he says, "Why aren't you together?" Because that's always I see in the movies, like, "Why aren't you with mom?" or "Why aren't you with dad?" And I was like, what am I going to tell my kid? I'm like, instantaneously I'm going to be like, tried my best, didn't work. And then I sat there and I was like, did I try my best? Did I really put 100% effort, or was I being selfish in this, being like, yo, I'm looking for what's easy for me, what's convenient for me? And having friends that were single, which did not, do well to the equation.
Yeah.
When you're hanging out with a bunch of people that are all just single, want to drink and party, and you have a wife and kids at home. And I told myself, like, I got to try this again. I'm going to give it 100%. So if it doesn't work, I can truly be able to look at my kid in the eye and say, I tried my best and it didn't work. And I bought another ring.
At least you knew the size now.
Right? I bought another ring, and I made sure Annie was involved this time.
how long in from the time y'all got married till then?
I want to say it was probably around 6 years, maybe.
Even if you're wrong, I'm pretty sure she'll correct us.
And I've always heard like that. Those first years are always the toughest with a lot.
It was tough. I think it's tough when you just like you're married right away, because you don't have a time to like get into a rhythm together.
Learn each other.
Yeah, learn each other. You're like, I'm like, yo, I'm doing what I do because I know this is what I do.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not compatible. I would play video games. I was working in an ambulance, and I would do 12 on, 24 on, and then 2 days off. And so I would play. She'd be like, it's bedtime. If any married person usually knows, when the wife goes to bed, it's your turn to go to bed also.
Yep.
Whether you're tired or not, right? I didn't know that. And I was like, I'm playing video games. And she'd be like, you coming to bed? I'm like, nope. Like, and then she'd end up like throwing my bag out there and being like, you know what? Like, this is your go bag. So tomorrow when you go to work, like whatever. And yeah, so I was pretty selfish in how I was, and it took a lot of lessons learned, and I appreciate the lessons I've learned and the mentorship I've gotten from people, to like kind of like adjust my course. And her too, she's very vocal, like I think on this movie called My Big Fat Greek Wedding, they're like, I'm the head, but he's the neck, right? And my wife is not the neck; she is the fist, right? She is the fist of the family.
Uh,
And the neck is probably a good analogy, but I can tell you the fist and the head never want to meet. You don't want to get in a position where that fist is coming to your head. So I have like learned a lot of lessons, and we now. I think we needed that because now we are so like like we're just on it. We can read each other. We know each other. So I think that struggle, and then plus I think the military also was a little bit beneficial in that because everywhere we moved, we're all we had. Like
Mhm.
we didn't have a family, we didn't have a support system, and so like when it was rough, it was not like she can run to her sister's house or something. It was like, yo, you need to work it out because you got
Yeah.
to be at work in the morning, and there is no like calling in sick, and this is the only person that is with you right now, and this is your only support. So you have to like kind of like make it work. So yeah, she's the best.
I want to I want to jump into faith, and moreover, for me this topic, or for me that's important, is how you came across Motion Church.
Oh, how I came supposed to it's
Well, but before we jump into Motion Church, because you said she's Christian, you weren't.
so
How did this work out, and then how did you find Motion?
okay. So the religious side of me, I'll kind of take it back. I grew up Catholic, and my mom would always take me to church. My mom was the one who was like, "We're going to church on Sundays," and sometimes my dad worked these weirdest hours. So my dad was never obligated to go to church because sometimes we'd be at church and he'd be at work, or he'd be just got home, he'd go to sleep.
Mhm.
So he was never obligated, and I was always wondering why I was kind of obligated. But because we were all we had, I was like, oh, I don't want her to go by myself. And usually it's food. She's like, I'll get you food afterwards. I'm like, yes. There was we were rural. There was no fast food. There was nothing. So when we went into town to go to the church, like it's like fast food or breakfast or something.
Yeah.
So I've always believed, I've always understood there's a God there. I always understood in a very generalized, I think, watered down way that I'm like, I know this much about the religion.
Mhm.
And I knew that the Catholic way of being like, well, I don't want to go to hell. I know that much,
Yeah.
so I got to be on my P's and Q's. So I've always kind of towed the line, I feel, with when it came to my spirituality. And I went through this point in my life where I think God really was trying to talk to me, but I wasn't even wanting to look in the same direction because in high school we ended up moving to this place, and there was like it was our house, and in front of us was a church, behind us was a church, we had a neighbor, and then a church on that side. We had a church, like it was like churches everywhere, and everyone was always like, do you know Jesus? And I was like, don't want to hear it, man. Don't want to hear it. Well, I think you should be saved. You want to be saved. And I was like, why does everyone want to save me? What's wrong with me? So I've always believed, I just didn't put the effort in, right? And my wife grew up with her mom going to the church and working in the church, and because she worked in the daycare of the church, they were involved in the daycare of the church, and so she's always, and then she was into Christian music and all this stuff that I think she was a little bit more spiritual than I was, and the only way we'd go to church is if she's like, hey, I feel I need to go to church, and it's like, okay, but then the reality of churches I would take her to Christian church, to Catholic church, and she'd be like, I'm not used to this, I'm used to like worship is her favorite part, and she's like I can't do this stuff. And I'm like, but this is church. Like you get dressed up the best you can and you show up and you do what you're supposed to do and all stuff. And so I started realizing like religion was more important to her. So I started going to her churches. And then I would see how churches would react. And then luckily, because we had that partnership, she knew, I knew like, hey, I gotta accept this kind of like singing, dancing churches.
What do you mean, like?
Like the woo, oh Jesus, you know. I mean, I wasn't used to that, and
Okay.
and so then she understood, like, hey, I have rules about church. No political talk. Don't overly talk about money. I've been in churches where they passed the bucket twice in one sermon, and I'm just like, this is coming around again, you know, like,
Yeah.
or like churches that are like, hey, believing means not being afraid to give too much, you know, stuff like that. Or people that try to get political, and I'm like, yo, if you teach me about religion, like, teach me the word. Don't tell me how to vote. Don't tell me about gun control or
Yeah.
abortions or any weird stuff like that. So I've always been very hesitant with churches, but I've always believed. My mom's given me a Bible. I've perused it a couple times. I've prayed. I do believe in Jesus. Um, and so she goes through these phases where we just won't go to church, and then she will feel it on her heart and be like, I need to find a church. And that is always my key to be like, support. Like, we're finding a church. We're going to church.
That was your cue. Like, I need to hone in on this.
Yeah, I need to hone in on this. And because it's something that she was more passionate about, I don't want to say she was more passionate about religion. My personal beliefs at the time was religion is a private thing between you and Jesus. Like, you don't build community, you don't go to church, you don't try to create disciples, you don't do any of this stuff. You have a relationship with Jesus that's between you and Jesus, and you don't need to involve anyone else. So I was always very private, and she was like, needed more of that like external religion of worship of the word and stuff like that. And so we've, through our life, have found random churches. And when we were in California, we found a really great church that we would go to religiously. Right? I mean, we made sure we were going there. We take our kids to youth. Our kids were enjoying youth, but we didn't get involved and engaged. We'd go to the carnivals or whatever they have, you know, but we weren't like integrated into the church.
Did you personally feel a connection with that church?
I did. It was called New Song. It was in the Oceanside area, and the pastor was very passionate and very knowledgeable. And so what he would teach you about some, like, he would do these series. And when he would go through these series, he would teach you backstories within the Bible that you wouldn't even read. Like, I still remember he talked about the lady who washed Jesus' feet, and he got so in depth in like how important that perfume was. It wasn't just perfume; it was like her livelihood, or the fact that, like, I knew Jesus went there and some lady washed his feet. Like, that's what I knew. And he would talk about how, like, Jesus was being shunned by this guy, and this guy, like, it was disrespectful that no one had already washed his feet, or he wasn't welcomed, and there was all this stuff I just didn't know, and it kind of was like really like sparked my heart to like know more about this stuff. So I'd listen to sermons, and we still get emails about it. He's just a really knowledgeable guy, but still at arm's length, you know, still at arm's length. Loved the series, loved the sessions, chatted with the pastor plenty of times. Really great guy. But yeah, that was the extent of and then because we had that really great church, it's almost like every time we moved after that, it was like trying to find that again. And then we retired, and we're getting our bearings, because like I said, retirement is very scary. You're essentially starting almost over from scratch with baggage. You know, it's like, where are we going to live? What's our community going to be? You know, how are we going to support ourselves? Like, what are my kids' insurance going to look like for medical? You know, all this stuff. So so we got to Longview, Texas by chance. We weren't even supposed to end up here. I didn't even know that Longview, Texas existed. I knew I wanted to live more on the outskirts of Dallas, Baforney or something like that. And we were looking for a house at the time, on the phone, on the road. Luckily, a really great friend of mine, he's from Denison, and his aunt is a realtor. So we contacted her, and she was wanting to help us out. And so I'm like, I can afford this much, you know, this is what I can afford. But I really wanted specific things. I'm like, I want a yard for my kids. I want a place we can grow. I want a pool because I got joint issues, and I wanted very specific things, and it was like astronomical prices. People were just like holding out for almost a year on the market, and you're like, oh, a year on the market, and it turns out people are just waiting for the right bids. It's not that they're not can't sell it; they just want the most money. And we really lucked out here because the guy we need a house, and the guy's like, I need to get rid of this house. And he's like, I don't want any crazy money for it. I want exactly what it was worth in last December when I what do you call it? And I was like, are you serious about selling it? Because your house is only on the market for a very short time. He's like, I'm serious. If you're serious, and we're serious, and we bought it and over the phone, and they're like, you have a house in Longview, Texas. I'm like, where the heck is that?
You don't even know where it is yet.
I mean, I kind of seen it on a map, but that was it. Just seen it on a map.
You told me you bought it sight unseen.
Yeah, we bought it sight unseen. Like the guy
a
was
place you've never seen.
in a place I'd never seen, a house I'd never seen. I didn't know what the neighborhood looked like. I didn't know.
And you knew the guy that sold it to you?
I didn't even know the guy. We were only in communication through the realtor, who apparently, and he's like, she's the selling realtor, and apparently it's because it's like his sister or his wife's sister or something like that. And it was her first sale ever.
That sounds like something from Craigslist or something.
Right? Yeah. So
Okay.
so we found this house, and we bought this house, and the guy was struggling with his family, and I was just trying to like get his marriage together. I talked to him because I came to the house, and I was like, hey, I'm about to move in. I'm about to sign the papers today. Signed the papers, went to the house, and he's still packing. And I'm like, I just signed papers, and I don't even have keys for this thing. So he was telling me his story, and he's like, I just really need another day. And I was like, okay, man, I get it. We'll stay at a hotel another night. And he was just like, I need to get my, like, his family was falling apart because it was too much for it. The house was just too much to handle. He had special needs kids. He had a young kid. He was working all the time. His wife didn't have the support system. It was just becoming a real struggle. And so I guess it was kind of meant for us to have this house, meant for us to be here in Longview. And we moved in, and we enjoyed everything but the weather. And it's funny
That's the
because
best part.
Longview, Texas was interesting because I didn't realize
Did y'all move in the winter or the summer?
we moved in September,
Okay.
and so it was hot, but it was like the last couple of days of being hot, and we knew it was a problem when people would know we weren't from here. They're like, "Oh, you're not from here." We're like, "We're not from here," and they're like, I'm like, I'm from Texas. So I grew up in Texas. Like I went to high school in Texas.
Yeah.
So, and so people are like, oh, you're Texan. And they look at my wife and be like, when you get through a summer here, you'll be a Texan, right? And so we're like, what does that mean? Like, what does this mean? And then we realized what that meant. Summer here was no joke. But yeah, and then so we were establishing ourselves. We were trying to get ourselves in order. I knew I was going to take some time off before looking for a job because I wanted to establish ourselves, get all our medical stuff done, like move in, get the house ready, and do all the things. And over a course of time, she's like, I need a church. I need to find a church again. I need to go. And I was like, okay, like I'll do this for you. Because I always like I believe personally and privately between me and Jesus, but I'm like, I'll do this for you because this is important to you. And so I was like, find the church. Because honestly, I was like, I don't care what church we go to because the church isn't for me. Like I do my thing. And she started looking up some of the services online on YouTube. And so she looked at she popped up a couple of churches, and she's like looked at one. She didn't really feel the sermon was speaking to her. I think she looked at maybe two more, and maybe one of those was motion. And she's like, I want to try this place. And I was like, well, that's what you want to try. And we pull up, and I'm like,
Over at Motion?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, really? Like,
Come on, tell me those thoughts.
in a
What are-
shopping center, right? Like, I mean, a little judgy.
Yeah.
But
You grew
I
up
don't blame
Catholic.
you. I don't
when
blame
you grow up
you.
in Catholic and you grow up
You're
in
used to
huge things.
Right.
You're like, oh, what's this?
I was judgy too.
So
when I
yeah,
first started.
so I was judgy. I went in. Everyone was very polite. Everyone wanted to know like about you, and that was kind of a detractor for me because, like I said, it's very private for me. Religion is very private, and so I was like, why are all these people wanting to know me? Like who are they? Like I just want to come to service, get this over with, so I can go home.
Yeah.
And slowly through steps, she was like, I think the first time we came here, I want to say we were like, it was okay. Okay enough to try it again.
Right.
Like, let's try it again. So we tried it again, and then I was like, okay, we'll try it again, right?
Then you were like, let's try it again.
I think one of
or
the
was it still her?
things. No, I mean it's always been. It was her for like till we got established. I want to say someone was asking about money at the end, and I don't know if Chris, if you were doing it yet, but they said if you're new here, don't feel like you need to give. But if you're a member here, we encourage you to give.
Mhm.
And so that really took me by surprise because majority of the churches I've ever been to, it's been like a money game, and that's why I've been like it's a private thing for me because it's a business, and I was like that's really interesting because they made it a point to say, hey man, we don't even care if you donate, and so I'm like, so that kind of perked my ears up a little bit to be like maybe there's something about this church more than money, and so I was like, she's like, you want to give it a try again? I said, yeah, I'll give it a try again. And so
was this a conversation you had with your wife,
Yeah.
or you just stopped?
no, this is a conversation we had.
Okay.
Because she knows my stance on churches about like just asking for money. There was a church down in the valley, and they would put these signs up, and it was always about money. And it turns out that I want to say the pastor died while using drugs and having an affair in the church. And so because of those correlations, I'm like, oh man, like I look at these things as like, ooh,
Leaves a bad taste in your
yeah,
mouth.
it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So I'm always skeptical, and because of the military side, I'm always defensive. Like I'm always like, what's wrong? What's the things that don't fit? What's the things that are wrong? So I can avoid, I make my risk low risk. And so I was like, okay. I'm like, well, that was really interesting to me. So I was talking to her and let's try it again. And we tried it again, and then we're like, okay, well, we think this is a church we can come to and get the message. And that was it. We'd show up for church and we'd leave. And then small groups happen. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to. And she's like, and at the time it was a joint small group.
Yeah.
And
So
so
married couples.
yeah, 'cause they had a men's and women's and a married couples, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And so she was like, I want to go. And I mean, I already knew that meant I was going. And she's like, but I want you to come with me. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, okay, if this is what you want, this is what we'll do. So we come, and she was kind of shy. She'd be like, someone would say something, and she'd be like, tell him this. I'm like, okay. Like I have no problems speaking, so I'm like, okay. I'm like, what about this? Or hey, this is where we're from, or whatever. I was answering the question. And then we went through the small group, went through the whole iteration of the small group, and then
as a couples.
as a couple.
Okay.
And then there was another small group. And then so same couples. And so she's like, let's go again. And I'm like, okay, we'll go again. And so she started feeling a little more comfortable and speaking and stuff. So I was like, okay, wow, this is kind of great. She's feeling more comfortable. Her comfortability is very important to me. So I pick up on if she's uncomfortable or not. And so then the next small group came, and it was couples small group went away,
Mhm.
and it was men and women.
Mhm.
And I didn't know that. I'm like, we're going to small group. Okay, I know what to expect. We're gonna have a couple things, and it was like, men are over there, and I was like, oh,
Oh no.
Oh no.
I've been separated.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, this is what it is. And it's a vicious cycle because I'm like, you know what? I'm not comfortable with these people, and trust and loyalty is very important to me.
Mhm.
But it's one of those, how do you build trust and loyalty with people that you don't engage with? So I would go with her to make her feel comfortable, and I'd be like, I'll go to this men's group. Okay. So you sit there and you're kind of quiet and you're just listening to people and you interject like here and there. And then the next, she's like, I'll go to small group. You don't have to come. Like, she felt confident enough to just come by herself. And I'm like, I'm going to come with you. You know, just make sure you're good. If something, you know, if you don't feel right or something, at least I'm there. And then, yeah, I came, and there was only maybe about, I want to say there was very few people in that small group, that the first all male small groups I went. I know you four were there,
Mhm.
and I think Cody, and I think that was maybe it.
Yeah.
And so it was very small, and the women's small group was a lot bigger.
Mhm.
And so I told her straight up, I'm like, yeah, it's really small. It's fine. Like I said, if this gets any bigger, I'm out. I'm out. Because I do well in, I feel like the trust and loyalty and the unit cohesion that comes in my experience in the military was always small group.
Mhm.
Like when it gets too big, it turns into something else.
Mhm.
It becomes more of like the personal side is gone. And so went to that small group. I don't know if there was another small group in between that I went to. And then this recent small group, I showed up and it was big.
Mhm.
And I was like, and even still, I was like, I might be out. Like, it's just too big.
Yeah.
And so, and the crazy thing is, Chris always is like, I hope we can make this bigger. And I'm like, and I was always like, no, don't get any bigger. But then, like, there's a comfortability with Motion Church. You know, there's a comfortability where you feel like you belong. You know, you don't feel like you're a visitor. You don't feel like you're an outsider. You feel like you belong. And then in the small, once I got comfortable in that small group, I was like, okay, I have a core team here that I feel comfortable with. So it's not me in a large group anymore. It's a team I feel comfortable with, even though I didn't know anybody really. But I had a feeling about how people were like judging. I judged, like, people were like, okay, I feel these people have good interests, good morals. They're in good direction. They're family people who love their wives and their children and stuff like that. And they're looking to do the right things. And sometimes struggle happens, and that's great because they're true people. They're honest people who are willing to be vulnerable, but also willing to support and not wanting to judge out loud.
Mhm.
Because I don't know if I can't say you don't judge, but I just know you don't do it out loud.
You gotta ask yourself
Yeah.
about somebody says, "Oh, I don't judge anybody."
Right.
There's some thoughts.
I
That
mean,
come to mind right off the bat.
You know, you got to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a trust thing that I used to do that used to throw people off. So when you go to work for someone, right? I'm pretty sure they do in civilian. Like, you go and talk to a boss, and they're like, "We're grateful to have you here. You know, you're part of the team. Anything you need, you just knock on my door. Here I am." You know, blah. And so people would have to come talk to me, and I don't know if it was right. I don't know if it was wrong, but I felt it was what I needed to do. I would always tell people, I'm like, "Nice to meet you," blah blah blah. And they'd be not pleasantries, and then I'd be like, "Don't trust me." Right? And they'd always be like, "What?" And I'm like, "Because I don't trust you." And they'd be like, "What?" And I'm like, "So if I asked you if you trust me and you said yes, we'd start on a lie, because trust is earned."
Yeah.
You know, trust is an earned thing. Like, if you came here and was like, "I trust you automatically," I'm like, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'd be like, we need to earn each other's trust. And I'm like, and my rank can take more of an impact. So I'm going to put that out there first. I'm going to take the risk first. You at a young rank, at a new position, shouldn't have to put yourself on the line to see if you could trust me. You know, it's scary. I'm like, I'm gonna do that first, and I'm like, and if you can't, this is gonna be a problem
Yeah.
because I'll take the hit because I can take the hit, but once I take the hit, like, our whole thing. So I used to do that to every single person that came in, and so that was really important to me is trust and being able to really trust that person on your left and right. Because when I look at team, I look at like, hey man, are you someone I can truly rely on as the guy on my left and the guy on my right? And that's never really left me. And so it's just a feeling that you have to have. And so I had that feeling, even not knowing you guys and wanting to like be more interactive in the small group, be more converse, to say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling more comfortable to say this stuff and to have these conversations. So so this is the only church. Motion was the only church we actually ever went to here in Longview, and we've never looked back. And it's been great, and it continues to get better. And all of a sudden, like, uh, uh, now I think I'm a volunteer in some way, shape, or form. And I got to slow that down a little bit to make sure I do my schooling. But
Have you been baptized?
I have been baptized
Yeah.
twice. I was baptized when I was young, when I was a kid. And when we were in that church in San Diego area, that was just a really great church. We had a lot of struggles at family, you know, as kids go through certain phases in their life and stuff. I hate you and all this stuff. I mean, it's inevitable. I think it happens in every family, maybe. And they were doing a baptism in the ocean. And so we decided, like, hey, let's start new and fresh. Let's all be baptized together, and let's wipe the slate clean of all the you know, like, you hate me and I'm pissed at you or whatever, and we'll do that. So yeah, so definitely got baptized again there. Great experience.
But would it be safe to say that and listening to you this whole time, that you're still in that walk with Christ, trying to really get that relationship as solid as you would like it to be?
You know, I'm gonna my opinion is that I feel everyone continues that walk.
Okay.
You know, I feel like once you let go of that hand, you're gonna go down the wrong path. You
Right.
know, you need to keep that relationship strong. And you need and where I am with God right now is I feel like I'm learning to listen. I'm trying to learn to listen. I don't know, and I think it's because this transitional period for me has really thrown me through the emotions. I want a job. I want to go to school. I want to do this. I don't know what I want. And it turns out, where is God leading me? And am I listening? And am I willing to take the chance? There's this guy who he's on YouTube and stuff. His name's Remy Adelecki. I don't know if anyone's ever seen this guy.
Never heard of it.
He has a phenomenal story. Navy SEAL. He was born in like Africa to a super wealthy family,
Mhm.
and dad died, and the government took everything. Like, they went and it was some kind of like, the dad was kind of like pushing against the status quo, and I guess like somehow the dad died. I don't know how, and they had drivers and they had like chauffeurs and maids, and they were super wealthy. Ended up moving to New York and just like struggling with a single mom, and started like selling cell phones and all this stuff, and um, just had a really crazy upbringing. He was part of this movement called "This Is Second" or "I'm Second" or something like that. I don't know if anyone's ever heard that.
Yeah, I have. It's pretty awesome.
"I'm Second" is kind of like, I think, and I could be wrong, but it's saying I'm going to put God first,
Mhm.
and I'll be second, instead of being selfish and saying me first. And so I worked with this guy, and
So you knew him in person?
yeah, I knew him in
Okay.
person.
Okay.
And he ended up being like in Transformer movies and doing a lot of movie stuff, and a lot, because they used a lot of these Navy SEALs as like combat, like fill-ins and stuff, and he essentially fit in very well, and has continued a very successful career in a lot of things. And I reached out to him when I was leaving, and when I was leaving the military, because I was scared, I was nervous. And he said, "Be yes to opportunities." He said, "Say yes to opportunities." He says, "That's how I got in the movie." Because someone was like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, be open." And so in my walk, I'm trying to just be open and say, where do you want me, God? I'm trying to do this now your way instead of my way. I did the career, and I don't know that I really was like, God, where do you want me to be, and how do you want me to do my career? I just did my career like felt I was supposed to. And so now I'm I'm trying to move with God.
Okay.
And I don't know where it's going to take me, but I have to be brave enough to take the step.
Mhm.
And I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of people is when God says go right, when you're comfortable going left, and you're like, oof.
Yeah.
But all you can do is take that one step forward. And I'm actually gonna probably start a new venture pretty soon, and my partner unknowingly has already positioned themselves in and I feel that this guy, right? I don't want to call him out. I feel like he created an out today,
Mhm.
and I went home and I thought about this, and I really kind of like tried to contemplate on this, and I'm like, it's gonna be easier to take the out than to take the step.
Mhm.
And I'm like, and I don't know where this will go. I don't know if this step is gonna like even result in one thing.
Mhm.
I don't know if this new adventure is gonna like end before it even starts. I don't know if it's gonna take one step and be over. I don't know what it's gonna do. But I definitely have to get back with him and let him know that, hey, you know what? It's not gonna be as easy as you thought, because I really in small groups we've talked about listening to God and how God talks to you. And I'm a factual person, and knowing parts of the Bible, I'm like, I've seen God talk through burning bushes.
Mhm.
I've read it, at least I haven't seen it. I've heard that his voice comes down from, the heavens, and people hear it. I've seen that he presents himself to people and says this. And I've always been like, if you want to talk to me, do that. And then I'll believe you. I'll believe whatever you tell me, you do that.
Yeah.
And Tom in small group, is like when you're asking to communicate with God and you start seeing things, a lot of people think they're coincidences, but you have to listen. And there's been so many coincidences that are kind of lining up in these certain ways. And and I don't know what it's going to look like. I really don't. But I think it could be disastrous, or it could be really great. And if I don't take one step forward, I'll never know.
Right.
If this is like, 'cause I went to aviation school, and the FAA chose to say, hey, you can't fly.
Mhm.
And so I thought that was the direction. And I went to a drone school. I was going to college for drones, and new policies changed and was going to add 2 years. And I'm like, this is not for me.
Mhm.
And I went to business school, and I'm like, I think this is what I need to do. And I'm not sure if this is for me. But I'm trying to keep my eyes open. I'm trying to figure it out. So we'll see, we'll see.
That makes me pretty excited for you.
happens.
I don't know what it
Yeah.
is, but yeah, that's exciting, and hopefully it does work out. But either way, even if it doesn't, at least you get an experience out of it.
You get an experience, and then, and I feel like I'm trying to listen to God, and if God wants it to work one step at a time, it'll work. It's going to be hard,
Right.
And there'll be struggle, but one step at a time. You work out the kinks on the front end, and you just get on the same page, and you say, hey, let's, we'll see what happens, and if it doesn't work, then I'll know, just like aviation and just like drones, that that's not where God wanted me to go. And we'll try something else. We'll end that journey, and we'll try something new,
That's good.
whatever.
Thank you for joining us. I
Of course.
appreciate it very
Thanks for
much.
having me.
Yeah, I'm gonna end with the last question. which is if today was the last day, your last day on Earth, what would be some advice that you would give humanity?
If today was my last day on Earth and I could give some advice, help people and give people a chance, but not to an expense that you're not willing to pay.
Oh, wow.